He just confessed to a murder he didn't commit. For her, sirens scream through rainy Seoul streets, slicing the night into shards of red and blue. Inside the prison transport van, chains rattle with every sharp turn, metal biting into skin as the vehicle hydroplanes through water-slicked roads. 19-year-old Elijah Carter sits in silence, wrists cuffed, ankles chained, shoulders relaxed like he's waiting for a bus instead of a lifetime sentence. His knuckles are bloody, his lip is split, one eye is already swelling shut, calm, unbroken, and miles away, under the harsh fluorescence of a private hospital corridor, Kang Seo-yeon collapses against a wall, legs giving out as doctors rush past her. Rain drips from her hair onto marble floors. Blood, someone else's, stains the front of her dress. Her chest heaves, breath shallow, fingers clawing at fabric like she's trying to wake herself from a nightmare. She whispers his name like a prayer she doesn't deserve to say. Elijah. He stepped in front of the gun for her. He took the blame to save her. And now he's going down for life. Unless she does the one thing that could destroy them both. This is the story that broke Seoul. Watch till the end. You won't see the twist coming. Welcome to Afro-Korea Stories by Yem Besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. The rain doesn't stop when the van doors slam shut. It never does in this city. Elijah stares straight ahead as the transport rattles forward, neon lights bleeding through reinforced windows. His jaw tightens, not from fear, but from memory. The sound of the gunshot still echoes in his head. The way Seo-yeon's scream cut through the alley like glass. The split second where the world narrowed down to one truth. If he doesn't move, she dies. That certainty had been instant. Absolute. No debate, no hesitation. He had seen her frozen in place, eyes wide, body locked between terror and disbelief. He had seen the man's finger tighten on the trigger. He hadn't thought about consequences or prisons or his father's name dragging him straight to the bottom of the system. He had only thought of her. The van jolts hard, a guard swears under his breath. Elijah barely notices, pain throbs through his hands, but it feels distant, unimportant, like a detail that doesn't belong to the main story, because the main story is happening somewhere else. In a penthouse overlooking the Han River, Kang Tae-jun stands perfectly still as the city glows beneath him. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame Seoul like a kingdom he conquered piece by piece. His suit jacket lies discarded on the floor. His white shirt is streaked with blood, evidence of a night that has gone off script. His phone rests in his hand. "You're certain?" he asks, voice low, controlled. "Yes, Chairman Kang," his head of security says. "Elijah Carter confessed at the scene. Multiple witnesses. He didn't ask for a lawyer." Silence stretches, thick and dangerous. "For what charge?" Tae-jun asks, a pause. "Attempted murder, illegal possession of a firearm, obstruction." Tae-jun closes his eyes once. That is wrong. Elijah doesn't carry guns, never has, never wanted to. The boy he adopted 10 years ago, angry, brilliant, painfully aware of being different in a country that never let him forget, had drawn a hard line between survival and becoming a monster. Tae-jun had respected that line. "Where is my son?" he asks. "Seoul Central Detention, en route to holding." The call ends. Tae-jun lowers the phone slowly. When he turns, the men in the room straighten, instinctively bracing. These are killers, strategists, men who have ended lives without blinking. None of them meet his eyes. "Bring me everything," Tae-jun says. "Cameras, body cams, witness statements, medical reports." A beat. "And find my daughter." At the mention of Kang Seo-yeon, something shifts in the room. Everyone knows her. 20 years old. Educated abroad. Raised in wealth, but untouched by cruelty. The one soft thing in a brutal empire. Too kind for the world her father rules, too trusting, too visible, and far too close to Elijah. Tae-jun had noticed it months ago, the way Elijah always positioned himself half a step closer to her than necessary, the way his eyes tracked her movements without conscious effort, the way his voice softened when he spoke her name, like it mattered more than his own. Tae-jun had warned him once, quietly, without threat. She is not your responsibility. Elijah had met his gaze evenly. She is, if no one else protects her. Now that protection has cost him his freedom. 3 nights earlier, Seo-yeon had stayed late at a charity event bearing her family name. The rain had come down hard, sudden, turning the city slick and dangerous. Her driver was delayed, her phone battery dying. She had waved off security, insisting she'd be fine crossing one street to the hotel. She had almost been right. The alley was narrow, poorly lit, silent in a way that felt wrong. The man stepped out fast, face covered, gun shaking in his grip. "Don't scream!" Seo-yeon froze. Money meant nothing, status meant nothing, not with death aimed at her chest. Then a body slammed into the attacker from the side. Elijah, the gun fired, everything shattered, security flooded the alley. Police arrived in seconds, the attacker fled into the rain. But Elijah stayed where he was, kneeling on the wet pavement, hands raised, blood soaking through his hoodie. The gun lay near him. "I did it," Elijah said calmly. Seo-yeon screamed his name. He never looked back at her. In the hospital now, Seo-yeon presses trembling fingers to her lips, replaying that moment again and again. The way he chose silence, the way he chose prison over letting her be touched by her father's war. A nurse tries to guide her to a room. She shrugs her off. "No," she says hoarsely, "I need to see him." At Seoul Central Detention, Elijah is led into a holding cell, chains removed one by one. He rolls his shoulders, winces once, then stills. This isn't fear. This is calculation. Because somewhere between the gunshot and the confession, Elijah realized something far more dangerous than prison is now in motion. Seo-yeon will not let this stand, and if she tells the truth, if she exposes who really pulled the trigger, it won't just free him. It will tear her father's empire apart. Elijah exhales slowly, eyes closing for half a second. He would do it again. But he has no idea what Seo-yeon is about to do for him. And Kang Tae-jun, staring at the city he rules, doesn't yet realize that the greatest threat to his empire isn't the police. It's the love growing between his son and his daughter, powerful enough to burn everything down. Morning breaks over Seoul like nothing happened. The rain is gone. The streets are scrubbed clean. Headlines flicker to life on glowing screens across cafes and subway platforms, commuters pausing just long enough to read the words before hurrying on. Billionaire's adopted son confesses to shooting. Heiress escapes alley attack unharmed. Questions rise over gang violence in Gangnam. Seo-yeon sees it all from a hospital bed she never agreed to occupy. The private room smells faintly of antiseptic and expensive flowers, sent by people who care more about appearances than truth. Her father's security detail stands outside the door like statues. Her phone lies on the bedside table, buzzing nonstop, unknown numbers, blocked calls, messages she refuses to open. Her gaze stays fixed on the window. Elijah didn't even ask for a lawyer. That thought claws at her chest. She swings her legs off the bed despite the dizziness, ignoring the sharp protest from her body. A nurse rushes in, alarmed, but Seo-yeon waves her away. "I'm fine," she says, voice hoarse but steady. "I need to leave." "You can't." "Yes," Seo-yeon says, meeting her eyes. "I can." Outside, a black sedan idles, engine purring. Her father's men open the door before she reaches it, faces carefully neutral. "Your father asked that you rest today," one of them says. Seo-yeon pauses. Asked, not ordered. That alone tells her how badly this situation has slipped his control. "I want to see Elijah," she says. The man hesitates, just a fraction. Enough. "I'm not asking," she adds softly. The drive to Seoul Central Detention is silent. Buildings blur past, familiar streets suddenly alien. Seo-yeon folds her hands in her lap to keep them from shaking, nails biting into her palms. She thinks of the first time she noticed Elijah, not as her father's adopted son, not as the quiet shadow always nearby, but as himself. It had been months ago, late evening, the mansion nearly empty. She'd wandered into the gym barefoot, unable to sleep, and found him there, shirtless, sweat glistening on dark skin, as he worked through controlled, brutal movements. He'd frozen when he saw her, eyes flicking away instantly, respect etched into every line of his posture. "I didn't know anyone else was awake," she'd said. "I'll leave," he'd replied. She'd told him to stay. Something had shifted then. Something unspoken. A line drawn and crossed in the same breath. Now that line has led here. The visitation room is colder than she expects. Glass divides them again. Elijah looks worse in daylight, bruises blooming across his face, a cut stitched roughly above his eyebrow. The orange uniform hangs loose on his frame, making him look younger, almost fragile, until his eyes lift and lock onto hers. Everything inside her tightens. "You shouldn't be here," he says quietly. Her breath stutters. "I said the same thing to you 3 nights ago." A ghost of a smile flickers and disappears. "You're safe. For now," she replies, "because you decided to disappear instead." His gaze sharpens. "I decided you would live." "And what about you?" she demands, stepping closer to the glass. "What about your life?" He exhales slowly. "I made my choice." "No," she says, "you made mine for me." Silence swells, heavy with things neither of them has ever said out loud. "They're building a case," she continues. "They're already spinning it. Your name, my father's reputation. They think the story writes itself." "It usually does," Elijah says. She shakes her head. "I can stop it." His jaw tightens. "You won't. I saw his face," she says. "The real shooter. I remember details, height, voice, the tattoo on his wrist. I can testify." "You'll put yourself in the middle of my father's war," Elijah says sharply. "You think that ends well?" "I think letting you rot in here doesn't end at all," she fires back. A guard clears his throat behind her. Time warning. Elijah leans forward, voice dropping. "Seo-yeon, listen to me." She hates how saying her name sounds like intimacy even now. "If you speak," he continues, "this stops being about justice. It becomes leverage. You'll be watched, used, threatened." She swallows hard. "You're worth it." The words hang between them, raw and unprotected. For a second, his composure fractures, just enough for her to see it, the fear, not for himself, but for her. "You don't know what you're saying," he murmurs. "I do," she says, "and I'm not backing down." The guard steps forward. "Time." Seo-yeon doesn't move right away. She presses her palm to the glass. Elijah hesitates, then mirrors her, stopping just short of contact. "This isn't over," she says. His voice is rough when he answers. "I know." As she's led away, Elijah watches her go, chest tight, mind racing. This is worse than prison, because now he understands something he hadn't allowed himself to before. Seo-yeon isn't a bystander in his sacrifice. She's about to become an active threat to everyone. Back at the penthouse, Kang Tae-jun stands before a wall of screens, footage paused on the alley scene. Frame by frame, slowed, enhanced, a blurred shadow, a glint of metal, a tattooed wrist, his eyes narrow. "That's not my son," he says flatly. One of his advisors shifts. "The narrative is already set, Chairman." Tae-jun turns slowly. "Narratives can be rewritten." "And your daughter?" Another asks carefully. She's asking questions, visiting him. That is the crack. Tae-jun's jaw tightens. "Keep her occupied." "How?" A beat. "There is an engagement proposal pending," Tae-jun says. "Revive it." The room stills. "You want to marry her off?" someone says quietly. "I want her protected," Tae-jun replies, "and distracted." Miles away, Seo-yeon stands alone in her bedroom, phone pressed to her ear. "I need everything you found on the alley," she says to a voice she trusts. "Every camera, every witness, no matter how small." She hangs up, heart pounding, because she's made her decision. And once she acts, there will be no going back. Elijah sits on the narrow prison bed that night, staring at the concrete wall, replaying her words. "You're worth it." For the first time since the cuffs closed around his wrists, fear coils in his chest. Not for himself, for her, because love, real love, has finally entered the game, and it doesn't care about empires, prisons, or bloodlines. It only demands everything. By the end of the week, Seoul stops whispering and starts shouting. Televisions glow in every lobby, every restaurant, every living room. Analysts argue in polished voices, legal experts speculate, commentators sharpen narratives into weapons. Why would the adopted son confess if he was innocent? Is this loyalty or guilt? What is Chairman Kang hiding? Seo-yeon watches none of it. She sits at the long dining table in her father's mansion, hands folded, spine straight, eyes calm in a way that unsettles the room. Across from her, Kang Tae-jeon studies his daughter the way he studies hostile takeovers, with patience, precision, and a readiness to strike when the moment presents itself. "You look tired," he says mildly. "I didn't sleep," Seo-yeon replies, a beat. "Understandable." Servants move silently, setting dishes neither of them touches. The air is thick with restraint. "There's something I need to discuss with you," Tae-jun says at last. Seo-yeon meets his gaze. "I know." His eyebrow lifts, almost imperceptibly. "Do you?" "Yes," she says. "You're going to tell me this situation is dangerous, that Elijah acted recklessly, that the media is circling, that my name is being dragged into something ugly." She doesn't pause. "Then you're going to tell me you've arranged an engagement, to protect me, to control the narrative." The room stills. Tae-jun exhales slowly. "You've grown sharper than I gave you credit for." "I learned from you," she says. He leans back. "Then you understand why this is necessary?" "No," Seo-yeon replies calmly. "I understand why it's convenient." A flicker of irritation crosses his face. This isn't about convenience, it's about survival. "Elijah survived," she says quietly. "He's just paying for it." Silence crashes down. "You will not say his name like that," Tae-jun says. "Why?" she asks. "Because it makes you uncomfortable? Or because it reminds you that someone else took responsibility where you didn't?" His eyes darken. "Careful." Seo-yeon's hands tighten, but her voice stays steady. "You raised him to be loyal. You taught him to protect this family, and now you're punishing him for doing exactly that." Tae-jun stands. "I am protecting you," he says sharply, "and I will not let sentiment cloud your judgment." "My judgment isn't clouded," she says, rising to face him. "It's clear for the first time in my life." A pause stretches between them, charged and dangerous. "The engagement will proceed," Tae-jun says finally. "Announcement goes out tonight." Seo-yeon's heart stutters, but she doesn't show it. "Then I'll tell the truth tonight," she replies. The words hit like a gunshot. Tae-jun's control fractures. "You will not." "I saw the shooter," she says. "I remember him, and I've been collecting evidence." His voice drops. "You think evidence protects you?" "I think silence destroys us," she answers. Tae-jun steps closer, towering. "If you do this, you put Elijah directly in the line of fire. You think prison is the worst thing that can happen to him?" Seo-yeon's breath catches, but she doesn't retreat. "I think he already sacrificed everything," she says, "and I won't let it be for nothing." For the first time in her life, she turns away from her father before he dismisses her. That night, the engagement announcement hits the press. Billionaire's daughter to marry rising tech heir. A move towards stability amidst scandal. Seo-yeon stares at her phone as the headline spreads like wildfire. She doesn't scream, she doesn't cry, she moves. Within hours, she's meeting a journalist she shouldn't trust and a lawyer she definitely shouldn't afford, both of them unaware they're stepping into a war zone. "I need to make a statement," Seo-yeon says, "off the record, for now." The lawyer studies her carefully. "If you do this, there's no undoing it." "I know," she says. Meanwhile, in Seoul Central Detention, Elijah feels the shift before anyone tells him. Guards watch him more closely. Conversations stop when he walks by. His name carries weight now, not just as a suspect, but as leverage. When the lawyer finally sits across from him, her expression is grim. "They're pushing for an expedited trial," she says, "and there's talk of an engagement." Elijah's chest tightens. "What?" "Kang Seo-yeon," she continues gently. "Your father's daughter." The words land like a blow. "No," Elijah says flatly. "She wouldn't." "She didn't choose it," the lawyer says, "but it's happening." Elijah grips the edge of the table, knuckles whitening. This is what he feared, not prison, not violence, losing her to a strategy she never agreed to. That night, alone in his cell, Elijah presses his forehead against cold concrete and finally lets the truth surface. He is in love with her. Not in the abstract, not in the safe, distant way he pretended, in the dangerous way that demands action. And if the system won't listen, if his father won't stop, then Elijah will do the one thing he swore he never would. He will step fully into Kang Tae-jeon's world, even if it costs him what little freedom he has left, because somewhere in the city, Seo-yeon is preparing to burn everything down for him, and when she does, someone is going to bleed. The first threat arrives disguised as flowers. A massive arrangement is delivered to Seo-yeon's room just after dawn, white lilies, flawless, suffocating in their sweetness. No card, no name, just perfection arranged to intimidate. She stares at them for a long moment, then reaches past the petals and finds the thorns deliberately left intact beneath. A message without words. She orders them removed and changes her route for the day without telling anyone. By noon, the city is buzzing again. Paparazzi cluster outside the gates. Commentators dissect her engagement photo like it's a crime scene. Her phone vibrates nonstop. She doesn't answer. She's already 2 steps ahead, walking into a quiet office building downtown where the elevator opens onto a floor no one knows belongs to her. Seo-yeon has always had power. She just never used it. The investigator waits inside, older, sharp-eyed, the kind of man who doesn't ask questions he already knows the answers to. She slides a folder across the desk. Alley cameras, she says, traffic feeds, private security angles. I pulled what I could before they disappeared. He flips through, then stops. This tattoo, he says. You're sure? Yes. And the shooter? Not Elijah, she says without hesitation, and not acting alone. He studies her for a long beat. If this goes public, you become the story. I already am, she replies. I just want the truth attached to it. Across the city, behind concrete walls and steel doors, Elijah feels the world tightening. A guard escorts him to a small interview room he's never been in before. No windows, 1 chair. Another already occupied by a man in a tailored coat that doesn't belong in a prison. Kang Tae-jun doesn't stand when Elijah enters. Sit, he says. Elijah does, eyes steady. You shouldn't be here. Tae-jun's gaze is cold, calculating. You shouldn't be in chains. A pause, heavy, loaded. They announced her engagement, Elijah says. Yes. You arranged it. I contained a problem. Tae-jun replies. Elijah's jaw tightens. She's not a problem. She's a vulnerability, Tae-jun corrects. And you made her one. Elijah leans forward, chains clinking. I saved her life. And now she's putting yours at risk, Tae-jun snaps. She's digging, meeting people, asking questions she doesn't understand. Elijah's chest tightens. Then stop her. Tae-jun's eyes narrow. I can't. That lands. You've already lost control, Elijah says quietly. Silence stretches, dangerous and electric. There's a way out of this, Tae-jun says at last, but it requires your cooperation. Elijah's lips curl. You already have it. No, Tae-jun says. I need you to disappear. Elijah stiffens. What? A transfer. Closed facility, no contact, no visits. Tae-jun says calmly. I make this case vanish. You serve time quietly. She moves on. Elijah stands abruptly, chains straining. No. Tae-jun rises to meet him, eyes hard. You don't get to choose? I do, Elijah says, voice low, because if you lock me away and touch her life one more time, I will tell them everything. A beat. Tae-jun studies him like a stranger. You wouldn't. I would, Elijah says, and you know it. For the first time, Tae-jun hesitates. That night, the engagement party is announced. An exclusive affair at a riverside hotel. Cameras, politicians. A spectacle designed to seal Seo-yeon into a future she never chose. She attends anyway. In a black dress cut sharp and simple, Seo-yeon steps into the ballroom like a blade. Her fiancé smiles for cameras. She doesn't touch him. The distance is visible, intentional, whispers ripple. Then she sees him, a man near the bar. Tall, familiar posture. A tattoo peeking from beneath his cuff. Her pulse spikes. She turns slowly, forcing calm, and walks past him, as if she hasn't noticed. Her phone buzzes in her hand. A message from an unknown number. Stop digging. She keeps walking. Or he dies in there. Her breath catches, but she doesn't stop. Later that night, in a quiet corridor away from the cameras, the man blocks her path. You should go home, he says softly. You're not built for this. She looks him in the eye. You're wrong. He smiles thinly. Your father won't protect you forever. I'm not waiting for him to, she replies. The smile fades. You're choosing the wrong side. There is no side where Elijah rots for your mistake, she says. He steps closer. You think he chose you out of love? He chose you because he was trained to. That hits. She steadies herself. You're afraid. His eyes flash. Of what? Of the truth, she says, and of what happens when I say his name out loud. She steps around him and keeps walking. By the time she reaches her car, her hands are shaking, but her resolve is iron. Back in his cell, Elijah receives a single scrap of paper slipped beneath the door. She's not backing down. He closes his eyes. This is the moment everything fractures. Because love has crossed the line from sacrifice to war, and someone, very soon, is going to make the wrong move. The mistake happens in front of cameras. It always does. The engagement party spills into the late hours, champagne flowing, laughter forced, alliances smiling for photographs. Seo-yeon stands at the edge of it all, spine straight, expression composed, while her so-called fiancé plays his role with polished ease. His hand lands at her waist for the cameras. She does not flinch, but somewhere deep inside, something tightens. Across the ballroom, a man she doesn't recognize leans in too close to her, voice low, familiar in the way danger always is when it thinks it has time. You should enjoy tonight, he murmurs. It's the last quiet one you'll get. Seo-yeon turns her head slowly. You keep forgetting, she says softly, that I'm listening. His smile sharpens. Then listen carefully. Withdraw your statement. Stop talking to journalists. Stop digging, or the boy in prison won't make it to trial. A camera flashes. The moment freezes. His proximity, her stillness, the tension vibrating between them. And somewhere behind concrete and steel, Elijah Carter feels it. Not the words, not the threat. The shift. Prison teaches men to read changes in air, in rhythm, in silence. Elijah feels the tightening before the guard even calls his number. Visitor, the guard says. It isn't Seo-yeon. It's a television mounted high in the corner of the visitation room, muted but impossible to ignore. Footage loops on every channel, Seo-yeon standing in a ballroom, a man leaning close, her fiancé watching from a distance. The headline crawls across the screen. Who is the mystery man with Kang Seo-yeon? Elijah's hands curl into fists. Heat floods his chest, hot, reckless, unfamiliar. Jealousy isn't something he's ever allowed himself. Wanting her already felt dangerous. Wanting exclusivity feels like a sin. He forces himself to breathe. She's not his, not officially, not safely, but the thought of another man close to her, threatening her, turns something feral loose inside him. That night, Elijah makes a call he swore he'd never make. It takes 3 favors and a debt he doesn't want to owe, but by dawn, Kang Tae-jun is standing in a restricted wing of the prison again, eyes sharp, patience thin. You're losing control, Elijah says without preamble. Tae-jun scoffs. You're in no position to— She was threatened tonight, Elijah cuts in. Publicly, Tae-jun stills. What? They're not afraid of you anymore, Elijah continues. They're afraid of her, and that means they'll move. Tae-jun's jaw tightens. You think I don't know that? I think you underestimated her, Elijah says, and now she's exposed. Silence stretches. What do you want? Tae-jun asks. Elijah lifts his chained hands slightly. I want protection on her. Real protection. Not handlers, not men reporting back to you. Tae-jun's eyes narrow. You're asking me to put my daughter under your authority. I'm asking you to trust the person who already gave up everything for her, Elijah replies. A long beat passes, then Tae-jun exhales sharply. If I do this, he says, you stop threatening me with the truth. Elijah doesn't hesitate. I never threatened you. I warned you. Later that day, Seo-yeon steps into a press room she didn't announce. The cameras whip toward her, chaos erupting as reporters shout questions over one another. Security scrambles, but she raises a hand, calm and deliberate. I'll speak, she says. The room stills. My name has been attached to speculation, Seo-yeon continues, voice steady, so I want to be clear. She pauses. The man who confessed to the alley shooting did not fire that weapon. The room explodes, cameras flash, voices rise, security surges forward, but she doesn't stop. I was there, she says. I saw the shooter. And I will testify. Her phone vibrates in her hand. A message, unknown number. You just signed his death warrant. Seo-yeon meets the camera's gaze anyway. In the coming days, she finishes, I will submit evidence to the authorities. I will not be silenced. She steps away from the podium as reporters shout her name, heart hammering, pulse roaring in her ears. She's shaking, but she doesn't regret it. Back in prison, Elijah hears about it through a guard who shouldn't be talking. Your girl just set the city on fire, the man mutters. Elijah closes his eyes. Pride swells in his chest, fierce and painful. She chose him. The backlash is immediate. That night, a car follows Seo-yeon through traffic, staying just close enough to be seen. Her security team changes routes twice. On the third turn, the car accelerates. Gunshots crack the air. Chaos erupts. Seo-yeon ducks instinctively, heart pounding, hands gripping the seat as glass shatters. Her driver swerves, tires screaming, sirens wail in the distance. She survives, barely. By the time Kang Tae-jun arrives at the secure residence he's rushed her to, his face is carved from stone. This ends now, he says. Seo-yeon meets his gaze, eyes blazing. It ends when Elijah walks free. That night, Elijah is moved, not deeper into the system, out. The charge doesn't disappear, but the walls around him change. A private holding facility, cleaner, quieter, temporary. When Seo-yeon is brought in under heavy guard, their eyes meet across the room. No glass this time, no words at first. She steps into his space without hesitation, hands fisting in the fabric of his prison-issued shirt, forehead pressing to his chest. You're alive, she whispers. So are you, he replies, arms closing around her before he can stop himself. The world narrows, breath, heartbeat, relief so intense it almost breaks them. I meant what I said, she murmurs. I won't stop. He pulls back just enough to look at her. Neither will I. This is the point of no return because the enemy is no longer hidden, and love, now public, now undeniable, has officially become a declaration of war. The safe house smells like antiseptic and rain. Concrete walls, one narrow window reinforced with steel mesh, 2 guards outside the door who don't speak unless spoken to. Seo-yeon stands in the center of the room, fingers trembling now that the adrenaline has finally drained from her body. The near miss still echoes in her bones. The scream of tires, the crack of gunfire, the sickening certainty that she almost didn't make it. Elijah watches her like she might vanish if he blinks. You shouldn't have come, he says quietly. She turns to him. You don't get to say that anymore. A beat. I almost lost you. He adds, voice rough. You already did, she replies, when you confessed. The words land, heavy but honest. He steps closer. Chains are gone now. The man standing in front of her is still marked by bruises and cuts, but his posture is different, alert, coiled, dangerous in a way prison hasn't dulled. I thought if I disappeared, he says, you'd stay out of this. She laughs once, breathless and sharp. You don't know me at all if you believe that. Silence stretches, charged. The room feels too small for everything between them, the fear, the relief, the need that's been building since the alley. She reaches out first. Her fingers curl into his shirt, grounding herself. His breath catches. He lifts his hands slowly as if giving her time to change her mind, then rests them at her waist. The contact detonates something raw. I was so scared, she whispers, forehead dropping to his chest. Not of dying, of living with you in there. He exhales, shuddering. I'd do it again. I know, she says. That's what terrifies me. They don't rush it. They can't. Every movement feels earned, deliberate, her hands sliding up his arms, his thumb brushing her cheek, both of them breathing like they've run miles to get here. When he kisses her, it's soft at first, almost reverent. Then hunger breaks through restraint, and the world blurs into heat and closeness and whispered names. The door stays closed, the lights dim, the rest fades to black. Morning arrives without permission. Seo-yeon wakes tangled in sheets that aren't hers, Elijah's arm heavy across her waist. For a moment, the world is quiet, normal. She lets herself breathe it in. Then the phone vibrates. She stiffens. Elijah is awake instantly. What is it? She checks the screen. No number. A message. You chose the wrong truth. Another follows before she can respond. Ask your father who ordered the shooter. Her stomach drops. Across the city, Kang Tae-jeon stares at a file he hasn't opened in years. The name at the top is one he buried carefully, deliberately, like a mistake that never happened. Park Sung-ho, former ally, financial architect, the man who helped Tae-jeon launder his first billions before disappearing into politics and legitimacy. The man with the wrist tattoo. Tae-jun's jaw tightens. He realizes too late that this was never about Elijah. It was about leverage. Back at the safe house, Seo-yeon paces, pulse racing. They want me to confront him, she says. They want me to ask you. Elijah's eyes darken. They want you isolated. And angry, she adds. He grips her wrist gently. You don't go anywhere without me. She looks at him. You're still a prisoner. He smiles without humor. Not to them. By nightfall, the city shifts again. A press leak hits social media. Documents, shell companies, a political donation trail that leads straight to Park Sung-ho. The story fractures the narrative, turning suspicion sideways. The shooter wasn't a random criminal. He was hired, paid, protected. Park Sung-ho holds a private fundraiser that same night. It's a trap. Elijah knows it the moment Tae-jun's message comes through. He's flushing the board. I'll go, Elijah says immediately as Seo-yeon's heart stutters. No. He wants me, Elijah continues. The adopted son, the loose end. He thinks if he cuts me out, the rest collapses. She steps into his space, hands fisting his shirt again. You don't get to die for me twice. He cups her face. I won't. But his eyes say something else. The fundraiser is all glass and light, a staged performance of innocence. Elijah enters in a borrowed suit. Posture calm, face unreadable. The crowd parts for him, curiosity outweighing fear. Park Sung-ho spots him instantly. The smile that spreads across his face is slow, satisfied. You're braver than I expected, Park says, drawing Elijah aside. Or more disposable, Elijah replies. Park laughs softly. Your confession was inspired, saved me a fortune. Elijah's phone buzzes. A message from Seo-yeon, one word only, now. Sirens erupt outside, cameras flood the space. Park's smile vanishes as authorities push in, warrants raised. He turns toward Elijah, fury blazing. You think this ends me? Park hisses. I'll take you down with me. Elijah steps closer. You already tried. Park lunges, a gun flashes, time fractures. Elijah moves without thinking, shoving Park aside as the shot fires, aimed not at him, but at Seo-yeon, who has just entered the room with her own evidence in hand. The bullet tears through Elijah's shoulder. Pain explodes. He stays standing. Guards swarm. Park is tackled, screaming. Seo-yeon drops to her knees beside Elijah, hands shaking as she presses against his wound. Stay with me, she whispers. Please. He smiles, faint but real. Told you, not leaving. The aftermath is chaos, arrests, indictments, resignations. Park Sung-ho is charged. The case collapses inward on itself, taking years of corruption with it. Elijah's charges are dropped within days. The confession is recast as obstruction under duress. The truth finally stands. Weeks later, Seoul exhales. On a quiet morning, Seo-yeon stands with Elijah on the balcony overlooking the river. His arm is in a sling. Her hand is laced through his. I could walk away, she says softly. Start over. Abroad. Quiet. He studies her. Do you want to? She shakes her head. I want this. He nods. Then so do I. When he pulls a small box from his pocket, her breath catches. No speeches, he says, no safety. Just us. She doesn't hesitate. Yes, she says, always. The city moves below them, unaware that something unbreakable has just been forged, not out of ease, out of fire. Seoul wakes slowly after the storm. The indictments land like aftershocks, names unspooling across screens, shell companies collapsing, alliances snapping in public view. The city that once whispered, now listens. Park Sung-ho's arrest fractures a decade of carefully laundered power, and with it, the lie that had nearly buried an innocent boy alive. Elijah Carter is released without ceremony. No cameras, no speeches, just a door opening, chains removed, a breath he's been holding since the alley finally allowed to leave his lungs. The sunlight feels unreal on his skin, too warm, too forgiving. Seo-yeon is waiting. She doesn't run, she doesn't cry. She steps forward with calm intent and places her hand over his heart like she's checking a promise they made in the dark. "You're here," she says. "So are you," he answers. They stand that way for a moment while the world recalibrates around them. The public statement comes hours later. Kang Tae-jun steps before microphones with a stillness that silences the room. He does not apologize. He does not posture. He tells the truth. What he allowed, what he failed to see, what nearly destroyed his family. He names Park Sung-ho. He names corruption. He names the cost of power when it forgets who it exists to protect. Then he does something no one expects. He acknowledges Elijah. "Without my son," Tae-jun says evenly, "my daughter would be dead." The word son lands with weight. Across the room, Seo-yeon feels Elijah's fingers tighten around hers. The engagement is dissolved quietly, no drama, no bargaining, just a signed release and a closed chapter. The man chosen for optics disappears back into the anonymity of advantage, relieved to escape a war he never understood. Threats don't vanish overnight. They never do. But the worst of them retreat when they realize the rules have changed. Protection tightens, names are exposed, quiet arrests happen before dawn, and for the first time since the alley, Seo-yeon sleeps through the night. Weeks pass, Elijah heals, his shoulder mends slower than his faith in the future, but it mends. He starts training again. Not for violence, but for discipline, for control, for the life he's decided to build instead of the one that tried to claim him. Seo-yeon returns to her work. Not the ceremonial charity she once fronted, but the infrastructure beneath it, the oversight, the audits, the places where money turns into safety or disappears into rot. She learns quickly, she is ruthless when she needs to be. People begin to defer to her, not because of her name, but because she doesn't blink. They argue sometimes about boundaries, about danger, about how much protection is too much, and when love crosses into control, they learn the shape of each other's fear and how not to step on it. They learn when to hold and when to let go. One evening, the river is quiet. The city lights reflect like scattered stars across dark water. They stand on the balcony where everything once felt impossible, hands entwined, the past humming softly behind them. Elijah breaks the silence. "If you ever want to leave, really leave, I won't stop you." She turns to him, eyes steady. "If I ever leave, it will be with you." He nods, accepting the truth of it. Kang Tae-jun joins them, keeping his distance. The space between them is respectful now, not healed, but honest. "You don't owe me anything," Tae-jun says to Elijah. "But if you choose to stay, I will never put her above you again." Elijah meets his gaze. "I'm not asking to be above her." Tae-jun inclines his head. "Then we understand each other." The city keeps moving. So do they. The wedding is small, no press, no spectacle, just vows spoken in low voices beneath a sky clearing after rain. Seo-yeon wears ivory, simple and sharp. Elijah wears a suit that fits like a promise kept. When they say forever, it doesn't feel like a word, it feels like a decision. They choose each other, publicly, privately, completely. Months later, on a morning that smells like coffee and possibility, Seo-yeon presses a test into Elijah's palm. He stares at it, stunned, then laughs once, soft and disbelieving, before pulling her into his arms, like the world has finally made sense. This is the ending the city didn't predict. Not an empire preserved or destroyed, a family forged, out of truth, out of sacrifice, out of a love that refused to stay quiet. And when Seoul looks back on the story that broke it, this is the part it remembers. He confessed to a murder he didn't commit. She told the truth that could have killed them both. And together, they chose a future no one could take away. Forever.